I never thought I'd find myself in this situation. I mean, who does? My marriage to Lisa seemed solid even if it wasn't perfect. We had our ups and downs, sure, but I trusted her. We'd been together for over 10 years, married for 6, and I thought I knew her inside out. But then little things started changing, and looking back, I should have paid more attention. It started with small stuff. She'd be late more often, sometimes by hours, claiming it was work, errands, or some stupid excuse about doctor's appointments. I'd ask if everything was okay, and she'd brush me off with a bitchy attitude, telling me I was just paranoid or that I didn't trust her. That should have been a red flag, but I brushed it aside. I was busy with work, with Dad's health issues, trying to keep everything afloat. Dad has been disabled for a while now. He had a stroke a few years back, and ever since, we've had a caregiver coming in. Lisa never liked the guy, Jake, I think his name was. She'd make snide comments about how he was stupid or lazy or how she didn't think he was doing a good job. I told her to cut him some slack, he was just trying to do his best. But then I started noticing weird things around the house. Things misplaced, furniture moved slightly, strange smells sometimes. Nothing concrete, just enough to make me suspicious. One night I was scrolling through the security cameras I had installed around the house. Honestly, I'd done it more for Dad's safety than anything else, but I kept an eye on everything. That's when I saw her, Lisa, walking into the guest room with Jake. Not just a quick visit like she was sneaking around. No, they stayed in there for a while. And the way she was acting, giggling, touching him, leaning in close, I knew something was off. My stomach clenched. I pressed pause, replayed it a few times, trying to make sense of what I saw. There was definitely something going on. I couldn't believe it at first. It felt like a punch to the gut. I mean, this is the woman I married, the woman I trusted to be there for me and Dad. And she's cheating on me with the caregiver who's supposed to be watching over my disabled father. My mind spun. How long had this been going on? Was she doing it with other guys? Was she ever truly faithful? The betrayal cut deep, especially knowing that she was betraying someone who couldn't defend himself, Dad, who's vulnerable and helpless. When she finally came out of that room, I stayed silent, just watching her from the shadows. She looked flushed, almost guilty, but her usual bitchy smirk was there, like she thought she'd gotten away with something. That's when I knew I couldn't ignore it anymore. I needed to confront her. But I also knew I had to get my ducks in a row. I couldn't let her manipulate her way out of this, not after what I just saw. I was furious, betrayed, hurt, and somehow a bit numb, like I'd frozen in place. I waited until she was asleep that night, then I took my phone, pulled up the footage, and stared at it for what felt like hours. My hands trembled. I had so many questions. Why? How? Was I really just some joke to her? Did she ever love me? Did she even care about Dad? The thought of her lying there, pretending everything was fine while she was sneaking around with a guy I trusted to care for my dad, Jesus, it was too much. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach again. I wanted to scream, to shake her, to make her admit it, but I just sat there watching her betray everything I believed in. The next morning was hell. I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My mind kept replaying that footage over and over. I couldn't focus on anything else. I kept asking myself why. Why her? Why was she doing this? I still couldn't believe she'd cheat on me, on us, after everything we'd been through. I thought I knew her. Hell, I thought I knew us. I didn't want to just accuse her without any proof, but I already had what I needed. The footage was clear. She was cheating. It was only a matter of how I handled it now. I didn't want to blow up without thinking it through. That's when I decided I needed to get more evidence, just to be sure. I set up a few more cameras around the house, pointed at the guest room, the hallway, her phone, and even the door to her car. I was going to let her lie her way out of this. Over the next few days, I watched and waited. Lisa kept acting normal, but I noticed little things. She'd be overly defensive if I brought up her late nights or her odd behavior. She'd snap at me about trust and how I was imagining things. That bitchy attitude was back, like she was trying to pretend everything was fine, but I knew better. I saw her kiss him again in the footage, this time more passionately. The way she looked at him like he was the only thing that mattered. That hurt more than I can say. Then one night I finally decided I had enough. I sat her down, calm but firm. I showed her the videos. I didn't even need to say much. The evidence was there. Her face twisted and she tried every excuse in the book. It was a mistake. It was just sex. You're overreacting. I was drunk. She lied, of course. Typical Lisa, always a liar, always the victim. I was furious. My voice trembled when I asked her how long she'd been doing this. She looked me dead in the eyes and said, "It's nothing. You're just jealous, insecure. I don't know what you want from me." She shot me a look like I was the one in the wrong, but I wasn't just angry, I was disgusted. Disgusted that she could betray me, betray Dad like that, all while pretending to care. I couldn't believe I'd been blind for so long, defending her, trying to keep everything together. After she stormed off, I sat alone in the living room, trying to process what I'd just seen and heard. My mind was racing. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and broken. How could she do this? How could she look me in the eyes and lie straight to my face? I kept asking myself if I should kick her out, file for divorce, or what. But honestly, I was just numb. Part of me wanted to forgive her, to pretend none of this happened, but deep down, I knew I couldn't ignore the truth. Not anymore. That night, I couldn't sleep. The thought of her with Jake, doing God knows what, made my stomach churn. I was drowning in a cocktail of anger and heartbreak. I kept thinking about Dad, how vulnerable he was and how she was cheating on me with someone who was supposed to be caring for him. It made me sick. I wanted to confront her again, to make her understand how much she'd hurt me, but I also knew that whatever I did next, it was going to change everything. There was no going back from this. The thing is, after that confrontation, I knew I couldn't just sit around and pretend everything was okay. I had to decide what I was going to do about her, about us. But my mind was in chaos. I felt betrayed, yes, but also humiliated. How could she lie so easily? How could she look me in the eyes and deny everything, then turn around and accuse me of being paranoid? I was furious, but I also felt something worse, like I was losing a part of myself, trusting her all these years, only to find out I was living with a complete stranger. I started digging deeper, trying to understand her motives. Maybe she was just bored, or maybe she was looking for some excitement. Honestly, I didn't care why anymore. I just knew I had to get proof beyond what I already had. I installed a few more cameras, this time more discreet, and kept watching her every move. I also began checking her phone when she was out. She was always quick to claim she had nothing to hide, but I found texts from Jake, flirty messages, even outright invitations to meet up. She'd delete them, of course, but I caught enough to know it wasn't just a one-time thing. While I was doing this, Lisa kept up her act, acting like nothing had changed. She'd be bitchy, dismissive, and sarcastic. She kept denying everything, accusing me of spying, of invading her privacy. "What's your problem, huh? Are you that insecure? You're just paranoid," she'd sneer. That was her favorite line, like I was some crazy guy making up stories in my head. But I had the evidence. I knew she was lying. One day I decided I'd had enough of the game. I sat her down in the kitchen, dead serious. I told her I knew everything, that I had proof. Her face twisted and her eyes flashed with anger. "You don't have anything on me," she spat. I just pulled out my phone and showed her the screenshots of her texts, the footage of her sneaking into the guest room. Her face turned pale for a second, then red with rage. She tried to deny, but I was done listening to her lies. There was no point anymore. That moment was like the final nail in the coffin. I saw her for what she really was, a manipulative, selfish bitch who couldn't even pretend to care about her marriage or her family. It hurt. God, it hurt to see someone you loved so much turn into this liar, this cheat. I felt so betrayed that I almost couldn't breathe. My hands trembled as I looked at her, knowing that everything I thought I knew was a lie, and I was furious, not just at her but at myself for trusting her so blindly. I realized I'd been blind for too long, and now I had to face what was really happening. I told her she needed to leave. I told her she was dead to me. She yelled, screamed, threw stuff, calling me all sorts of names, trying to turn it around on me, saying I was crazy, that I was overreacting, that I was just jealous because she was hotter than the guy she was sleeping with. That was her way of minimizing everything, making me feel like I was the problem. But I knew better. I knew what I saw, what I felt. This wasn't about her being hotter or whatever bullshit excuse she was throwing out. This was about betrayal, scarlet letter level betrayal, especially because she was doing this with someone who was supposed to be caring for my dad. After she finally stormed out, I sat alone in the quiet, feeling like I'd lost a part of myself. The house suddenly felt colder, emptier. I looked at the footage again, trying to process everything. The pain hit me hard. This wasn't just a fling or some stupid mistake. This was a full-blown affair, and she was willing to risk everything: her marriage, her relationship with Dad, even her own integrity. I didn't know what to do next, but I knew I couldn't keep living like this, knowing she was lying, cheating, and sneaking around behind my back. The worst part, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd been completely blind to her true nature all along. I kept asking myself if I'd ever really known her at all. It's like I was staring at a stranger and realizing I'd been living with her for years, never seeing who she really was. That's the thing about betrayal. Sometimes it's not just about the person who did it. It's about the trust you thought you had, the life you thought was real, shattering in an instant. And now I was left trying to pick up the pieces, wondering what the hell I was supposed to do next. After she left that day, I felt a strange mixture of relief and despair. I knew I had to make some decisions, but my mind was spinning. The house felt colder, emptier, and I couldn't shake the image of her sneaking around, of her lying to me so effortlessly. I kept staring at the footage on my phone, replaying her every move like a bad movie I couldn't turn off. I was angry, devastated, and honestly a little scared, because this wasn't just about her cheating. It was about everything I believed in, everything I thought was real. I decided I needed time to think, time to cool off, to figure out what I really wanted to do. But I also knew I couldn't keep pretending she hadn't betrayed me. I sat down and started writing everything out: what I saw, how I felt, what I suspected. I wanted to keep a clear head, avoid acting impulsively, because I knew her. She'd try to manipulate me, gaslight me, turn the blame around. That's what she did best. That's what she was doing every time she told me I was paranoid or insecure. In the days that followed, I kept my distance. I didn't answer her calls or texts. I wasn't going to let her play the victim anymore. I focused on Dad, making sure he was okay, taking care of him as best I could, because honestly that's what mattered most now. But every time I looked at her side of the house, I felt this gnawing emptiness. The house, once full of life and laughter, now felt like a battlefield where trust had been shattered into a million pieces. One night, I finally confronted her again, this time face to face. I wanted to hear her try to lie her way out of it again, to see if she'd crack. She showed up at the door, bitchy smirk back on her face. She told me I was overreacting, that I was making a big deal out of nothing. She claimed all her actions were innocent, that she was just confused or bored or some bullshit like that. She looked me in the eyes and said, "You're just insecure, you don't trust me. Maybe I should just leave if you're gonna accuse me of everything." I stared at her, feeling every ounce of anger boiling up. I told her I knew what she'd done, that I saw her with Jake, that I had proof. And I told her if she thought she could lie her way out of it again, she was wrong. Her face flickered, and for a moment I thought I saw a crack in her armor. But then she straightened up, dropped her fake innocent act, and sneered. "You're crazy. You're just jealous because I don't want to be with a guy who's too busy with his stupid dad to pay attention to me. You think I cheat? Please. You're just insecure like always." That was the moment I realized she was never going to admit the truth willingly. She was too good at twisting things, too good at convincing herself she was the victim. I knew then that if I wanted any real answers, I'd have to take matters into my own hands. I decided to lay everything bare. I would get rid of her, make her leave, and move on with my life, no matter how much it hurt. I wasn't going to stay with someone who betrayed me so thoroughly, especially not when it involved my vulnerable father. That night, I made a plan. I called a lawyer, started sorting through the paperwork for a divorce. I told her I was done with her lies, her manipulations, her cheating. I told her she could take her stuff and get out. She responded with more insults, more accusations, trying to make me doubt myself. But I wasn't listening anymore. I knew what I had to do. I knew I couldn't go on living in this lie. As I sat there staring at the empty house, I realized just how much I'd lost: trust, respect, even the hope that things could get better. But I also knew I had gained clarity. I saw her for what she truly was: a selfish, manipulative woman who'd betray the most vulnerable just to scratch her own itch. And I wasn't going to let her do that anymore. I was done pretending everything was okay. I'd face the pain, get through it, and rebuild my life without her. The day she finally moved out was almost surreal. I watched her pack her bags, her bitchy smirk replaced by a look of pure defiance. She threw a few baseless accusations my way, said I was trying to control her, that I was insecure, that I was making her life miserable. Honestly, I didn't care anymore. All I could think about was how much I'd trusted her, how I'd been blind to who she really was all this time. Seeing her walk out that door felt like the end of a nightmare I'd been stuck in for years. Once she was gone, I felt a mix of relief and emptiness. The house was quiet, eerily so. I was finally alone with my thoughts, and I couldn't help but dwell on everything I'd learned and experienced. I'd gone from a man blindly in love to someone who now knew the painful truth. She'd been lying, betraying, cheating with the caregiver who was supposed to be watching over my disabled father. That realization hit me like a punch to the stomach every time I thought about it. It made me question everything: my marriage, my judgment, my own trust in people. I knew I had to focus on Dad now because he's the reason I kept going through all this mess. I wanted to protect him from the chaos, from the fallout of his mother's betrayal. But every time I looked at his fragile, helpless face, I felt this intense guilt. I wondered if I should have seen the signs earlier, done something different, protected him better. That's when I realized the true extent of her selfishness, not just cheating on me but putting Dad's safety at risk, betraying him as well. That made my anger burn even hotter. In the weeks that followed, I started to rebuild. I cut all ties with her, no more calls, no more texts. I blocked her on everything. I threw out her clothes, her stuff, everything that reminded me of her. I focused on Dad, making sure he was comfortable, safe, and loved. I also started seeing a therapist, trying to process the betrayal and rebuild my sense of trust. It was hard, really hard, because I'd never thought someone I loved could be so manipulative, so full of lies. I kept asking myself where I went wrong, but deep down I knew she had her own issues. I also got some legal advice about the divorce. I wanted to do it clean, straightforward, and fair. I knew my priority was protecting Dad and making sure she couldn't harm us again. The pain of losing her was immense, but I realized I had no choice. Staying with her would have meant accepting the betrayal, living in a lie, and I refused to do that. I wanted to be done with the lies, the manipulations, the endless betrayal. Looking back, I see how naive I was. I see now that I was too trusting, too eager to see the good in her. But I also see that sometimes people reveal themselves when you least expect it, when they think they're getting away with something. I learned that loyalty isn't just about staying married or pretending everything's fine. It's about real honesty, real commitment. And she didn't have that in her. Not anymore. I'm still healing, still working through the pain, but I know I made the right decision. I can't trust someone who betrays you at the worst possible moment, especially when it involves your family's safety. I've come to accept that I'll probably never fully forget what happened, but I can move on. I will. For myself, for Dad, and for the hope that someday I'll find someone who truly values me and respects the trust I give. Now, sitting here reflecting on everything, I realize just how much this ordeal has changed me. I used to think trust was something you just gave freely, something that came naturally in a relationship. Turns out it's something you have to guard carefully because some people, like Lisa, will betray it without a second thought. That lesson hit hard, but it's one I needed to learn. I've come to understand that betrayal doesn't just hurt, it devastates. It shakes your core, makes you question everything, and leaves scars that take a long time to heal. But in a strange way, it also forced me to grow stronger. I learned to listen to my instincts, to recognize the signs I ignored for too long. I learned that sometimes love isn't enough. Loyalty, honesty, and integrity matter far more. Without those, everything crumbles. I also learned that revenge isn't about hurting her back or making her suffer, at least not in the way you might think. For me, it's about reclaiming my peace, restoring my trust in myself, and making sure I never fall for someone's lies again. Moving on isn't about forgetting. It's about forgiving yourself for trusting the wrong person and choosing to rebuild anyway. Today, I focus on my father's well-being, on finding a new peace, and on making damn sure I'm smarter about who I let into my life. It's a lonely road sometimes and the pain still lingers, but I know I'll be okay. I've learned that betrayal may come from the people you love most, but it doesn't have to define you. You can get past it, grow from it, and come out stronger on the other side. So if anyone out there is going through something similar, just know you're not alone. Trust is fragile, and some people will always take advantage of that. But your worth isn't defined by their betrayal. Keep your head up, protect your heart, and never let anyone make you doubt your own value. Life goes on, and eventually, the pain will fade. What remains is the strength you didn't know you had all along.